Can you feel the tension in the air? It's that time of year. This is the time where all the husbands go and they're trying to find last minute Valentine's Day gifts. Nah, scratch that. We got another week. It's trade deadline time. The NBA trade deadline. At this point, we have about a little less than 24 hours until the deadline at the time of this recording. The reason I mention that is because these trades have been stacking up so fast and furious. By the time we put this up, God forbid there could be 3 or 4 more other trades. You've got Anthony Davis going to Washington, which is really strange. You've got Chris Paul going somewhere. You've got guys going everywhere, even for more picks. But the biggest names yet to be moved, the Heat are still reportedly in on. That's Giannis Antetokounmpo, and that's Ja Morant. With me is Anthony Chang. I am John Devine. Let's talk all things Heat related before we get into the NBA at large. So, what do we think? Can the Heat still get Giannis? I guess that's the first question.
Yeah, as long as Giannis is available, they're still in the running, right? What I could say is the Heat, and this is not a surprise, but they have prioritized Giannis over Ja Morant, right? They are focused on aggressively pursuing Giannis. That hasn't changed as of this recording. They've registered some level of interest in Ja. I know some people, including our own Barry Jackson, have reported that there's a way to get both Ja and Giannis. I don't know if that's going to happen, but they have registered some level of interest in Ja. But the priority is Giannis. That's who they're going all in for. That's who they're trying to get before the deadline. We'll see if that happens. As of right now, it seems like it's a 3-team race. I mean, obviously, a surprise team could jump in there, but right now it seems like Golden State, Miami, and Minnesota, the 3 teams, most linked to Giannis. We can go through the different packages and all that. But the Bucks, at the end of the day, have a decision to make, right? Because they can either trade him now before a 3 p.m. trade deadline on Thursday, or they can wait until the offseason when there might be more available for teams to trade. Even the Heat could maybe open up a 3rd or 4th pick in the offseason to trade Milwaukee. Right now they can only trade 2. So there is some incentive for Milwaukee to wait, but will they be willing to do that and continue to kind of have this distraction and this loom over them unresolved for the next few months, or will they make a deal before 3 p.m.? That's kind of the big question here as we wait for as the clock ticks down to the deadline.
The Heat has 2 first-round picks at this moment. But if I'm not mistaken, can they not open one up if they trade Anthony Wiggins, for example?
Andrew Wiggins, yes, they could.
I don't know why.
Well, Anthony's a good name, so you're forgiven.
I was talking to you. That's why.
They could. I mean, people keep saying that, and that's true. Like maybe. I mean, but who knows? Do we know that Andrew Wiggins get a 1st-round pick? Right? He's on a player. He has a player option. He could become a free agent. It might be a rental if he opts out of that player option. I mean, if you can get a 1st-round pick for him, even if you can't get Giannis, I would say you probably should do it if you're the Heat, right? Because this team is another play-in team, it seems like, and it's kind of still middling around mediocrity. And if you can just stockpile 1st-round picks, I think you should do that for a player that you might lose in the offseason anyway if he opts out. But that's another discussion for another time, right? But yeah, if that's the difference between getting Giannis because they want a 3rd 1st-round pick, yeah, you do that. But I don't know if it's that easy. I don't know if Andrew Wiggins can get you a 1st-round pick, right? I mean, 1st-round picks are pretty valuable if you look around the league. So I think the Heat are working the phones, shopping the marketplace to kind of see what they could do to make their package better, see if they can, what can put them over the top in the pursuit of Giannis. So there's a lot of work being done behind the scenes. But right now, it seems like the package would be built around Kel'el Ware, obviously, who's kind of the Heat's top young prospect, the salary of Tyler Hero, right, to make the money work. And he's from Milwaukee, a talented scorer, an all-star last year. And other young prospects, whoever really the Bucks want, right? Other than Bam, you could throw Jaime in there. You could throw Kaz in there. Terry's salary needs to be in there, right? Either Terry or Andrew Wiggins' salary needs to be in there. Terry is an expiring contract. So that's, while he's not available to play right now, he has some value as an expiring deal. So, and then he'd have 2 1st-round picks and 2 pick swaps they can offer Milwaukee as well. But is that enough, right? When you see Gobert going for 4 or 5 picks and Mikal Bridges going for 4 or 5 1st-round picks, is that package of players and 2 1st-round picks enough for a generational talent like Giannis? I don't know. Milwaukee again might say this isn't good enough. We're gonna wait till the summer, see if we can do better. Again, that is kind of the big question here.
And while we're doing this, Lonzo Ball just got traded.
Oh,
So, yes, they're sending him to the Jazz. And that's what I was saying when we were talking about whether Wiggins would net a first-round pick. You had Jaren Jackson Jr. How many first-round picks was he worth?
I think 3.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then you're even talking about Anthony Davis. And Anthony Davis, that deal, it seems like, in terms of draft prospect and draft capital, the Dallas did better with this than they did when they gave up
Luka. Yeah, it's strange.
So I don't see how you can't say that it can't net us at least one pick, depending on who it is. And look, some of these teams have so many picks. Like Oklahoma City has a ton of picks. Utah has a ton of picks. There are a lot of teams that have – it seems like 5 teams have like 30% of the picks, and everybody else, they're picking and choosing where they can.
Yeah. No, to your point, the Thunder just got Jared McCain for a first-round pick and 3 second-round picks.
Right.
So, Jared McCain is a good young talent. He was going to be Rookie of the Year probably last year before he got hurt. I don't know how OKC keeps doing this stuff. I mean, he seems perfect for them, right? They just keep getting better, and they still have a ton of picks. But yeah, to your point, I mean, you might be able to get a first-round pick for him. And if we see that deal done, like in the next few hours, that might be a sign that maybe it might not necessarily mean that, but it could be a good sign for the fact that maybe the Heat are close to getting Giannis, right? Because that could be a precursor to that type of deal. So we'll see.
From a basketball standpoint, let's say it is Hero, it is Khalil Ware, and a swingman, which means Jaime Jaquez, maybe a Jovic, maybe, someone on that front line, Simone Fontecchio.
Kaz. Yeah.
Or Kaz. After the dust clears, what kind of team do you have left?
Well, you
from
still
an X's and O standpoint.
If you look, this year they're not going to be the best team in the NBA. I think that's pretty clear after this trade. This is about building. You're still going to be better probably right now because you have Giannis, Bam, and you still have Norm Powell, right? Norm Powell isn't in this hypothetical deal. He's your all-star this year. So that's a good trio to start with. You still have Davion Mitchell. So you have a starting lineup pretty much of Davion, Norm, Pella, Giannis, and Bam. That's a pretty good starting lineup, especially in this wide-open Eastern Conference. Then off the bench, you still have Nikola Jovic, which I don't think Jovic will be in this deal just because of the poison pill provision, which basically means he has signed to that extension. It's not kicked in yet. It makes it really hard for them to trade him until July 1st. So I think Nico will be here. You still have Nico. You might still have Simone. Myron Gardner has all of a sudden turned into a rotation player, 2-way contract guard forward. That might be converted to a standard contract here soon, depending on what happens on the roster. So you still have some guys to kind of fill out. Drew Smith, right? You still have some guys to fill out that bench unit, the depth. But yeah, your depth is going to be depleted somewhat. But look, what other choices do you have? They're 27-25. They just came off a bad loss to the Hawks at home. They're in 7th, 8th place in the East. Continue to hover around 500. They got to shake things up, right? Even if you don't get Giannis, you don't get Ja, you got to do something. You can't just carry these expiring contracts and let them expire without getting anything in return, right? So I would think there has to be some type of move or moves that this team will make before 3 p.m. because this isn't a team you just move forward with based on the way things are going right now,
And even if they do get him, or even if they get Ja, there's still one fundamental thing they're going to have a problem with. It doesn't matter who you move around, and that's a lack of shooting.
Shooting, yeah.
They don't seem to have consistent outside shooting.
There appears to be that there's going to be a good buyout market this year, just with all these trades happening. I mean, you see Chris Paul, he's not going to stay with Toronto, it seems like. Chris Middleton, Giannis' old buddy, might be a buyout candidate after this recent trade from Washington. I guess I just saw Lonzo Ball just got traded to Utah, is not expected to play for Utah. Like, there's going to be some guys available, and the Heat have proven, too, over the years, JD, that they can develop shooters, right? You look at Max Strus, look at Duncan Robinson. I'm not saying it's easy. It's easier said than done, obviously, but they have a reputation of being able to identify three-point shooting and developing that player to become a rotation player. So if any organization is going to figure that out, it's going to be the Heat. And obviously, they still have Norm Powell, who's a really good three-point shooter. You'll need more than that. But the identity of this team is going to change a little bit. It's going to be about defense. When you have a defensive unit of, a starting lineup of Pella, Bam, Giannis, and Davion, that's as good as it gets probably defensively, right? So it's going to be a little bit different the way their style of play is. It's not going to be as high scoring. Might be able to still play fast because Giannis is great in transition, but it'll just be different. But yeah, I think over time, I think that'll be the challenge of kind of being able to surround this team with shooters. And also, it might be a more attractive destination for free agents in the offseason where I can go play with Giannis, I can play with Bam, get wide open threes, maybe be a title contender. Again, not apples to apples, but look what the Heat did when they had the big three. They got Ray Allen, they got Shane Battier. Like, it's easier to get those type of guys when you have a generational talent on your roster like LeBron, like Giannis.
Now, let's say, hey,
Christmas. And you're in Miami. And you're in Miami, not Milwaukee. So that helps you.
Let's say Christmas comes early in South Florida and Giannis shows up. There's one big thing that we always that we don't talk about, and that's how healthy this guy is or is not. A lot of times, and this is not me putting it on him, but a lot of times those calf injuries are precursors to Achilles injuries.
Sure.
And he's had like 2 or 3 in the past couple of years. And if you do that, if you pick him up and you dump these picks, and I understand the Heat has, even though in the last 5 or 6 years they've actually drafted useful players with those first-round picks. But you're doing it with the thought that, hey, your first-round picks are not going to be lottery picks because you're going to be successful. You're going for it. They should be in the 20s. If you do that and the bottom falls out and he's hurt for a year and someone else has your picks, what have you done to what has happened to this franchise? It's
a risk you take, but I mean, isn't it a risk worth taking for Giannis? I mean, it's not like we're talking about, a marginal star. Like, he is still, when healthy, a top 5 player in the league, right? And yeah, there is some risk involved. I was talking to somebody, actually an agent, yesterday, and they were like, it's risky. Like, I don't think it's as clear cut as people are making it out to be. Like, he's had these calf injuries. We've seen what calf injuries turn into, like you said, JD. So there is a risk where you're mortgaging your future, where you're trading basically your entire young core. You're trading all your picks. You're going all in with a core, Bam and Giannis and whoever else you get to surround them. And if he gets hurt, yeah, you're kind of in trouble. But again, what are the other choices? Like, you've been trying to get this star, this superstar now for 10 years or so. I mean, I guess you got Jimmy, but other than that, like, you haven't been able to. Dame, James Harden, Kevin Durant. You tried for Giannis a few times. You got to go for it.
I think I just get concerned because of the time frame of that injury and how long it takes maybe for people to come back. Look at Klay Thompson, and he was a jump shooter. He is a jump shooter, so it's a little bit different. But you're talking about a guy who plays, he pushes the ball, he goes downhill. He's running and jumping over and through people. If that lift is not quite the same, of course, he's 7 feet. But if it's not quite the same, he may have to adjust a little bit. And, like we always say, father time's undefeated. So he's going to have to just adjust because he's 31 going on 32. That's going to happen anyway. It just will. But if you add that on top of it, it's just the risk. And I'm sure, look, as much as we're talking about, if you don't think the Heat's going through and running into due diligence, you're just crazy. Because I'm sure that's what they're doing.
Would you do it? I mean, if the Bucks said, we'll take your deal, we'll take your offer, Khalil Ware, Tyler Hero, Jaime Jaquez, Cass, Terry, your 2 picks, your 3 pick swaps, you can get Giannis and his brother. Would you do it?
I probably would. I would. My only fear is, my worst case scenario in my head is, God forbid this guy gets hurt, top 5 pick, and we don't even get to use the top 5 pick.
Mm-hmm.
That would bother me to no end. But that's playing the result. Look, all everybody does is play the result anyway.
Right.
Yes, it's a gamble worth taking.
It's a gamble.
You're Pat Riley. You're 80 years old. You're going whale hunting. You're looking for that last great big Moby Dick whale pie in the sky. There's not a bigger name out there that has a combination of that name, the resume, and the age where he's still in his prime. No matter what, we're talking top 5 player. You can say this. You can say maybe Ant-Man, but look, the other guys are not going anywhere. And the way the salary cap and the way contracts are these days, it's hard to move. Before we always talked about, hey, you can work your way out with contracts and free agency. Free agency does not seem to be the way out that it used to be 5-10 years ago. It's just not. So you do have to pounce. Ja Morant, similar thing. We're still dealing with injury history, but there are other things. I am of the belief that Ja Morant could magically feel a whole lot better when he's out of Memphis. Now, you still have other issues you may have to deal with. It's not like he hasn't had behavioral issues. And I have a feeling that South Florida has a few more temptations than Memphis. I'm just going on a limb here, but they're just more things. But, you always throw that heat culture with a capital C and say, they'll get them straight and they'll do it. But it doesn't fix the fact that Ja is an athletic freak. And let's be honest, point guards who can run and jump out the gym like that, they age poorly. And when I say that, I mean that when you could get by anybody and get to, all of a sudden you're getting by 99% of the people. Now you're getting past 90% of the people. Or that same moment that someone can slide over for help defense that wasn't there before. Or, you're jumping and your elbow's in the rim and now all of a sudden it's just like the top of your head. Those few inches and those few millimeters and that little bit of time makes a huge difference. And I like to liken it even back to way back. We can say Isaiah Thomas. Remember when he hurt his wrist and all of a sudden that shooting percentage wasn't great to begin with and it kind of dipped. Ja Morant's shooting percentage, I don't even think he shoots 30% in three-pointers.
No, he's not. 20-something percent. Yeah.
And if you are slowing down a little bit, getting to that hole, and then all of a sudden you have to rely on your jumper, that could be a problem. Then we just lay off you and wait and say, okay, shoot us out of it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think one comparison is Russell Westbrook, right? Still an effective player, but not what he once was.
Right.
And look, I don't think anybody's in disagree that Giannis is the better player between Giannis and Ja at this point. But relative to costs, getting Ja is going to be a lot more than you have to give up. Getting Giannis is going to be a lot more you have to give up than Ja. Ja, you might be able to get for Terry Rozier and Simone Fontecchio, and Memphis might just be willing to take those 2 expiring contracts to get Ja's money off the books, and you have a deal, right? So,
how many years does he have left? 2, I think.
He has this year and 2 more years. The thing is, he wants a max extension. So you're going to be running into that issue. He's eligible for that extension starting this offseason. It's 3 years, basically $180 million. I don't think the Heat are giving that to him.
No.
Based on this summer at least, they're going to probably want to say you have to prove it to us for at least 1 more year, one full season, with what you can do. But that has already been reported out there by other people, and I respect everyone's reports, but I wouldn't think that's true right now. That the Heat are willing to do that. If they trade for him, they're willing to give him that extension. We've seen just from history, Jimmy Butler, they didn't give him that extension, right? After everything he did for him. Tyler Hero, they did not give him that extension this past offseason. They're going to want Ja to prove it. And is that going to be an issue? Is that going to be a problem for Ja? We're going to have another Jimmy Butler type situation where he's like, you're not going to pay me after you got me? So that is something to keep in mind, even though it might not cost much. He wants that extension. And that is something the Heat are going to have to deal with if they get him.
And, maybe they think that, hey, if we lure Ja and then, God forbid, we get Giannis as well, look what we put around you. Isn't that worth taking a little bit off the top?
Think about the 3-point shooting for that team, JD. Yes. Oh, my, how would that work?
You need a bunch of 3-point shooters. Bam Adebayo cannot be your best 3-point shooter. It just can't be.
That's going to be offensively something to figure out for Erik Spoelstra. A challenge like no other, right? Yeah, you have a lot of talent, but make that fit work.
We're going to have to put him in unrivaled for the 3-on-3 league.
Yeah.
That's the only way that's going to work.
Yeah.
Because then at least you have spacing.
It sounds good on paper, but I do wonder what the fit would be with those 3 together. So, but yeah, I mean, look, this is a really important 22 hours from the time we record this for the Heat because they do have some big decisions to make. Obviously, going after Giannis, but if you can't get Giannis, do you go after Ja, or do you say, look, There's nothing out there that's going to make us good enough to compete and be even an Eastern Conference contender this year. We might as well try to get assets for these expiring contracts we have, right? You have Simone Fonseca's expiring deal. You have Andrew Wiggins' expiring deal. You have Norman Powell's expiring deal. You have Terry Rozier's expiring deal. Again, you can't just let them expire for nothing. That would not be doing your job, right? If you're the Heat front office, you got to try to get something, especially if look, we're in playing territory again. So the Heat don't like to take steps back. They like to, play for the moment, compete, whenever, at all times, no matter what, and live in the moment. But this might be a time where if they can't get Giannis and they're not that interested in getting Ja, they might have to do that type of move because it might make sense based on the way this season is going.
And let's say they do that. How far are they really falling out of play-in territory if they do that?
They're still in the play-in because they're not going to be bad enough.
The Bucks are going to be bad. So you don't worry about the Bucks passing you up.
The Wizards are not trying to win, right? They're trying to get a top pick.
And the Bulls definitely are not trying to win.
The Bulls are not trying. So that's 3 teams right there. Brooklyn's not. You could scratch them out. That's 4. And then I guess, Charlotte's obviously making a run. They're playing much better. But do we think the Heat, the Heat right now are 3.5 games ahead of Charlotte? I guess they could fall out of the play-in, but it's going to be very hard. And I don't think they're going to be bad enough.
His favorite team, Charles Barkley keeps talking about the Hornets.
Hornets?
They're coming. I'm like.
They just got Kobe White today. Yes. So they're adding. They're going for. And they probably will end up in the play-in because right now the Bulls are in that last play-in spot at 10. And as we know, the Bulls are getting worse, not better. And they're only 1 game ahead of Charlotte. So they probably will fall out. And Chicago might fall out. And Charlotte will move into that spot. So, but I just don't think the Heat are going to fall behind the Bulls, the Bucks, the Nets, the Wizards, or the Pacers.
Right.
So worst case, the Heat are 10, even if they trade Wiggins.
Okay. Where did Vukovic go? He went to Boston. Okay.
Boston, which is a good fit. I mean, they need a center, and he's a 3-point shooter. We know the Boston Celtics love to shoot threes, so another guy who could put up threes for them. They're going to take more threes than ever. Kind of like an Al Horford type, right, to a certain extent, where they lost this offseason. So makes a lot of sense. It's actually, I think, a good move for them.
Let me ask you an overall NBA deadline question. Looking at all these moves, who would you rather be right now? Or which team would you rather be affiliated with? The Wizards or the Jazz? And for people who aren't paying attention, we already talked about Anthony Davis going to the Wizards. Yeah. You talked about Trae Young. You have Sarr, who was the number 2 pick. You got Keyshawn George from University of Miami. You have Bilal. You have Bilal, the guy from France.
Yeah.
Don't ask me how to pronounce that his last name. You have some players there. But the Jazz, now they have Markkanen. They have Jaren Jackson Jr., who plays great defense. It's just amazing. A 7-footer can only average like 5 or 6 rebounds a game.
Walker Kessler.
Yes. You have Keyshawn George. And then you have Isaiah Collier behind him. You have and they both and the Jazz have a ton of picks. So if you're buying futures, who are you buying futures in?
I say the Wizards only because they're in the Eastern Conference, and the Eastern Conference right now is so much worse than the West. so I would say for that reason, and also the Wizards are they're probably end up with maybe the worst record in the league this season. So that means they're going to have a kind of probably a top 2, top 3 pick, and this draft is great. So they're going to end up with another star most likely to add to their core right now of Sarr, AD, Trae. In this Eastern Conference, I know some people might make fun of kind of that AD Trae duo. We put them around young talent. I mean, it's not bad. Like that could be competitive in this East. So I would say the Wizards for that reason. But yeah, it's a good question for sure.
If you could get AJ DeSanta from BYU, and put him on that team, that's ridiculous. And for the record, I don't have French bias. What I have is the lack of pronouncing it, and I have a real problem of embarrassing myself. So I will say his first name is Bilal. I can spell his last name, but if you're asking me, gun to my head, how to pronounce it, I'm going to be so wrong. Look,
Bilal Coulibaly.
Yeah, him too.
Yeah.
You see me avoid Kaz as well, because at the beginning when we drafted him, I was like, no. So
Kaz. Yeah, they call him Kaz. You can go with Kaz.
I know who he is. I know where he went. I know his story. But look, if you ask us Giannis Antetokounmpo 15 years ago, I guarantee you a whole lot of people were like, I don't know how to say his name properly. So if I'm not going to say it right, I'm not going to say it for right now. But I do like him. He's a very good defensive player. He was not just in Victor Wembanyama. Oh, Wembanyama, French name, by the way. I did that one. But he was not just riding Victor's coattails. He's a legit player. He's a legit defensive player. He plays both ways. I was actually going to say I might actually go toward the Jazz because they have more picks. And yes, the Western Conference is full. But if you're giving me a front line, and we didn't even mention Ace Bailey, who's a top 5 pick.
Yeah.
Lauri Markkanen, and then Triple J. That's 3 guys, 6'10" and over.
That's a good point.
You have a point guard. You have a point guard and a backup. Isaiah Collier had 22 assists last night. That's the most by any Jazz player since some guy named Stockton. That's a lot of guys. Yeah. I always laugh. There's a guy from my high school, not Taylor Hendrickson. He went to UCF.
Sensabaugh, right?
Sensabaugh went to my high school. He put up 43 the other day. Now, the only thing is I think he'd give up 45 on defense, but they're shooting that. There are pieces there that with maturity, and if you supplement it with picks, or you use those picks to make it. Now, getting people to play Utah is probably going to be a little bit harder than getting people to play in DC, even with the current climate. But at least there's something to see there. You know, it's been such a wasteland for so long. It's nice to see something coming out of that.
It's nice to see these teams that have been kind of at the bottom for so long, like you said, Utah, Washington, now even Charlotte, right, trying to go for it. Like, it's good for the NBA that you have some different teams, and good for those markets that they have teams that are now trying to improve instead of go the other direction, right? So in that regard, I think it's good for the league.
And it's good that they're trying, I guess, more than anything else. Look, the Nets, and I understand, they went all in. They tried to put their big 3 of Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce. That didn't work. They abandoned that. They're trying to find their way. But these days, what we've always said is, if you're not going to be very good right now in the NBA, you're better off being very bad. This purgatory where the Heat finds itself, what is this, the 3rd or 4th year in a row? 4th year in a row if they made the play-in?
4th year in a row if they're in the
play-in. This whole 8, 9, 10 play-in format, South Florida fans have had the whole process on lock. Nobody outside of maybe Chicago knows the play-in better than this group of people.
I think if this trade deadline goes by without the Heat making any type of move, which I don't think they will do, I think they will make some type of move. But if they don't do anything with this roster, I think fans have a right to be upset. I really think they do. And I know fans will be upset either way if they don't get Giannis. Like, they could do something. They could trade Wiggins for a first-round pick, and fans probably will still be upset. But I could, if they can't get Giannis, you tried, right? I mean, you might just not have enough. But if you have to be able to capitalize on these expiring salaries in that scenario. They can't. I think that's going to be a problem. So I expect the Heat to do something. We'll see what that is. It could be Giannis. It could be Ja. It could be, again, using expiring contracts to stockpile assets. We'll see. But I don't think they could just do nothing with the way things are going.
Okay. Rate what you think is most likely to happen. Here are your options. You ready?
Yeah.
They get Giannis. They get Ja. They get both. They pet off. They get neither, and they pet off the expiring contracts, or they do nothing. That's 5 options.
They do neither, and they pet off expiring contracts.
Okay, that's first. Okay.
Giannis is second.
Okay.
Ja's third.
Okay.
Both.
The options are both, and
both
then
is
nothing.
4, and nothing is 5. I just can't see a world where they do nothing for this team. That is I think that is my least likely. I would even take Giannis and Ja, that scenario, more likely than them doing nothing. Because yeah. So that's what I think about them doing nothing. That's why I think if they do nothing, that is a problem. That is a problem.
So you think they're feeling the pressure a little bit to do something as well?
Yeah, I think they need to. Because what is the direction of this team, right? Where is it going? It's been stuck on idle now for 3 or 4 years. And you could say you went to the finals in 2020, 2023. that was a miracle run. That was an outlier. You were like, what, the second 8 seed to ever do that? You can't bank on that every year. Jimmy Butler turned into Michael Jordan. That playoff run took it to the finals. You lost to the Nuggets. Since then, you got swept. You lost in 5 games to Boston. It really wasn't close in the first round. Then you get swept in historic fashion.
Yes.
Against the Cavs. And then this year, you're again, 27 and 25, going between the 7th and 8th place in the East, the same thing. You got to do something. You can't just continue to carry this same roster, especially when you have expiring contracts that if you don't trade them now, you either have to re-sign them in the offseason or you might lose them for nothing. So this is the time to capitalize on the expiring contracts. Now, if you tell me here the 2 seed and we got to keep Wiggins because we're going for it, I get that. But that is not where this team is. They're not in a point where like we can't sell off Wiggins because he's important to our championship hopes. That's not where they are. So I think they do have to do something because their situation calls for it.
I can see that.
Will they do that? This team, that's against what this team does. That's against what they stand for. But I think this is a unique situation that they might do something that's kind of uncharacteristic for them.
It's weird because I think their DNA has shifted a little bit. They have always talked about draft picks. Yeah, draft picks. They've actually invested in draft picks. They have used their resources to develop these guys. And now for the first time, now it's like, okay, let's use these picks and these players to get us something more, which is fine. But when you put that time and effort in, I'm talking mentality. I'm not talking what should be done. I'm talking about when you invest this time. Look, last year we couldn't have given Jaquez Jr. away for anything.
Right.
There's no way. This year, all of a sudden, it's like, oh, look what he's turned into. Now, they put in a lot of work behind the scenes. So you put work in on this guy. You put work in and you go, we see Khalil Ware in practice every day. Now, to hear Spo talk, I don't think he'd mind if he let him go. But, do you worry that, not you, but I'm saying as the Heat as an organization, do you worry that what you're giving out, because it's young players that have, in theory, have not reached their ceiling yet, do you have seller's remorse and go, oh, this is going to come back and haunt us?
So, question: do you think any of these young players will be all-stars?
Yeah, and that's the question. And
I don't know.
Do you feel like you'll regret it if they are?
Yeah.
Look, because they could. Look, if Giannis came in and did what Giannis can do, and he gets you a deep playoff run, and he attracts other players, and you put together a team, and Khalil Ware is an all-star, not a starter, but he's their representative for the next 3, 4, 5 years. I think you still would take it. But if it's Giannis is on a slide because he keeps breaking down and he becomes Anthony Davis 2.0 and Khalil Ware is an all-star and you go, oh, well, we could have just done this. That's what I mean.
I mean, look at the Dame situation, right? The Heat kind of lucked out. It turned out to be that they didn't trade for Dame because he wasn't as good as he was in Portland. He obviously ended up having that injury. And look at Milwaukee now. Now they might lose their best player after trading for Dame a few years ago.
Right.
But hindsight's 20/20. I don't think anybody at the moment thought that was going to happen to Dame. Everyone thought that was a good move for Dame for Milwaukee. So you have to be concerned because he does have the calf injury right now. He has a history of calf injuries. But I think if you feel confident enough that he's going to recover from that and he's going to be fine, he still has a lot of good basketball left in him. We saw it this year, right? He's still, when he's been out there, he's been dominant, a top player in the NBA. So I think, there's a chance something bad could happen, but you can't operate in that world, especially where the Heat are right now. You have to go for it. And I think that's what they're doing. They're going for it. Now, is it enough? I don't know. That's for the Bucks to decide. But the Heat are really trying and pushing for Giannis. And they're one of the teams that really, at this point, if the Bucks do decide to trade him before the deadline, the Heat are one of the top teams, with a chance to get him.
The one thing we can say is the Heat is very calculated, very measured. I don't think they would do it. They may feel the outside pressure a little bit, but they don't act out of desperation.
Oh, no, they definitely don't.
And if they don't act out of desperation, look, it's less likely that these deals go really, really south because you were desperate and you just threw everything against the wall and said, here, take what you want.
Well, look what the Bucks did with Dame this year, right? Where they waived and stretched him to get Miles Turner.
Right.
That worked. That was desperation to try to please Giannis, and that
Yes.
didn't turn out that well. That's the advantage he has. There, a lot of his GMs or coaches, they operate because they're in fear of losing their job. We have to do something. The Heat don't have that problem, right? No one's going
Right.
anywhere. They have stability. That's why they don't act out of desperation. But I do think they probably know that something needs to be done, right, with this roster. So what that something is remains to be seen.
Well, we have less than 24 hours to find out what's going to happen. If something big happens, you ready to do this again? Because we may have to wipe this out and start all over again. So
as long as I'm not flying to Boston, but yeah, we'll figure it out.
And we'll talk to the engineer too. We'll bribe him. I will brush up on my French to English dictionary, see what I can do to lure him into helping us out. But this should be a very, very fun 23 hours if you're an NBA fan. So I would say stay locked in here. You've got Anthony, you've got Barry Jackson, you got a whole slew of people who'll be willing to break it all down for you. You guys, of course, have your own opinions, and you're welcome to them, and we look forward to them. So let's just enjoy this trade deadline and see what we get in the aftermath. Until then, I'm John Devine, and this is Anthony Chang, and thank you for joining us on Heat Check.